Maid's daughter watched everyone ignore CEO's deaf son until she spoke to him in sign language. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's story. In a grand mansion, nestled high above the city, everything appeared flawless. The marble floors gleamed under the chandelier's soft light, casting a soft glow that illuminated the rooms filled with rare artwork and lavish furnishings. A place where wealth was not only visible, but almost tangible, seen in every gold-framed painting, every imported rug, and every piece of fine china that decorated the long dining table. The estate was the home of Jonathan Gray, a CEO who had built his empire from nothing, his name known in boardrooms across the country. But there was something in the house that not many people paid attention to. His son, Lucas. Lucas had been born deaf, and in a world that moved too quickly and loudly for him, he had often been overlooked. His father, though successful, was always too busy, focused on business deals, meetings, and the next big project to see his son for who he truly was. To Jonathan, Lucas was more of an afterthought, someone he didn't know how to communicate with, someone he didn't know how to connect with. Lucas, for his part, had learned to retreat into the quiet corners of the house, where he was left alone to silently observe the world around him. It was the maid's daughter, Emily, who noticed. Emily, a young girl of about 11, had been working in the mansion for some time. She wasn't part of the family's world of high-powered business deals or extravagant parties, but she had a keen eye for noticing things others missed. She had seen Lucas sitting at the dining table, his eyes following his father's every move, but never spoken to. She had seen the way the other servants avoided him, unsure of how to interact with a deaf child. They spoke around him, as if his silence made him invisible. Emily had seen the loneliness in his eyes, and it pained her. She knew that Lucas could understand more than anyone gave him credit for. One afternoon, as she was quietly working in the kitchen, Emily overheard Jonathan discussing an upcoming business deal with his associates. Lucas, as usual, was sitting by himself, looking out the window. She could tell he was listening, even though no one seemed to be speaking directly to him. His father's voice, loud and confident, echoed through the house, but it did not include his son. Emily's heart sank. She knew this scene all too well. She had seen it play out in countless other families, parents who were too consumed with their own lives to see the needs of their children. But there was something different about Lucas, something special that no one had noticed. Emily had a secret, something she hadn't shared with anyone. She knew sign language. Her grandmother had taught her as a young child, and she had always felt a deep connection to the language of the hands. It wasn't just a way to communicate, it was a way to connect. Emily stood in the doorway, watching Lucas as he stared out the window. She took a deep breath, then slowly walked toward him. She hesitated for a moment before sitting down beside him, careful not to startle him. Lucas turned to look at her, his eyes wide with curiosity. Emily smiled and gently raised her hands, forming the signs for hello in sign language. At first, Lucas seemed confused, but then he relaxed, his face lighting up as he realized what was happening. Slowly, Emily began to sign, asking him how he was feeling, what he had been doing, and if he needed anything. To her surprise, Lucas responded. He signed back, his fingers moving in slow, deliberate gestures. It was the first time in a long time that anyone had spoken to him, really spoken to him, in a way that he understood. In that moment, Emily saw something in Lucas that no one else had noticed. A bright, curious mind, a desire to connect, and a potential waiting to be unlocked. She didn't know what would come of this small interaction, but she knew one thing for sure. Lucas would never be ignored again. As the days went by, Emily continued to visit Lucas during her breaks, slowly, forming a connection that neither of them expected. She taught him more signs, and in return, Lucas began to express his thoughts more freely. They would sit together in the corners of the mansion, Emily teaching him new signs and Lucas picking them up with remarkable speed. Emily had always known that communication was key, but watching Lucas light up as he communicated, something so simple to others but so profound for him, made her heart swell with pride. Despite the progress they made, Emily still saw how people around Lucas remained oblivious to him. His father, Jonathan Gray, was still immersed in his world of deals and investments. The busy CEO barely took notice when his son was present, much less when his son tried to express himself. It was as if Lucas existed in the background, part of the mansion's expensive decor, but never truly part of its life. One day, the family gathered in the spacious living room for a grand dinner party. The room was filled with the hum of conversation and laughter as guests mingled, glasses clinked, and servants moved quietly around the room. Jonathan stood in the center, holding court, discussing the latest merger with one of his colleagues. As usual, Lucas sat off to the side, observing. Emily, now more attuned to Lucas's needs, noticed that he was looking particularly uncomfortable. He shifted in his seat, glancing at the crowd, hoping for someone to acknowledge his presence. But as usual, no one did. His father was deep in conversation, his attention consumed by the endless topics of business that seemed to matter more than the son standing right next to him. Emily's heart ached for Lucas. She could see that he was trying so hard to join in, but his attempts to communicate were ignored. She couldn't stand to watch him suffer any longer. As she passed by the table, she caught his eye, and without thinking, she made her way to him. This time, there would be no hesitation. She approached Lucas, who looked up at her with a mixture of hope and uncertainty. Without a word, Emily sat beside him and sighed. "How are you?" The words were simple, but the meaning was powerful. Lucas's eyes brightened, and he smiled for the first time that evening. He signed back, telling her that he was feeling frustrated. Emily listened patiently, nodding in understanding. She then turned to the rest of the room, noticing the obliviousness of the adults around them. She realized something in that moment. If anyone was going to change the way Lucas was treated, it had to start now. Without warning, she stood up and turned to face the room. "Excuse me," she said, her voice clear, but not loud enough to disrupt the ongoing conversations. She was hesitant, but determined. "I think it's time you all finally hear Lucas. He's not invisible. He has something to say." The room went silent. All eyes turned to Emily, then to Lucas. The guests stared in confusion, unsure of what to make of the young maid's bold statement. Emily didn't let the silence deter her. She walked back to Lucas's side and signed once more, this time for everyone to see. "Lucas, you are important. You have a voice, and I'm here to make sure it's heard." Lucas's eyes widened, and for the first time, he didn't feel small or insignificant. He felt seen. He signed back, telling Emily how grateful he was that someone finally understood him. For a moment, it was just the two of them, communicating in their own world, while the rest of the room remained frozen. Jonathan Gray, standing nearby, watched his son with a mixture of surprise and guilt. He had been so wrapped up in his own world that he had failed to see the boy standing right in front of him. The reality of his neglect hit him like a cold wave. Jonathan had always prided himself on his success in business, but what had it been for if he couldn't even connect with his own son? The realization was both painful and humbling. He took a slow step toward Lucas, his heart racing. For the first time in a long time, Jonathan didn't know what to say. He had failed his son, but now, maybe, he could start to make things right. The room remained silent for a long moment after Emily's words. All eyes were on her, then on Lucas, who sat there, his heart racing, but a sense of relief washed over him. For the first time in his life, someone had spoken for him. Someone had made sure he was seen. Emily stood by his side, her presence offering him a sense of comfort. Jonathan, still standing nearby, watched his son with a deep feeling of guilt that weighed on him like a heavy burden. He had always been so absorbed in his work that he had never truly seen Lucas, never understood what his son needed. But now, as Emily's bold words echoed in the room, Jonathan felt the sting of realization. He had failed Lucas, and worse, he had failed to give him the attention and support he so desperately needed. Jonathan's heart pounded as he took another step forward, his voice trembling slightly when he spoke. "Lucas, I never realized." Lucas, still sitting at the table, looked up at his father. There was a flicker of confusion in his eyes, but also something else, hope. For a moment, Jonathan wasn't sure if his son would speak, but then Lucas signed, "I'm not invisible." Emily stood beside him, watching as father and son faced each other. The entire room had gone quiet, the air heavy with the weight of the moment. Jonathan's face softened, and for the first time, he felt a connection to his son that he had been missing for years. Slowly, he knelt down to Lucas's level, his voice now steady, though filled with emotion. "I'm so sorry, Lucas. I've been so focused on everything else that I didn't see you. I didn't hear you. But I promise, from now on I will. I will try, I will learn, and I will be there for you." Lucas's eyes widened, and for the first time, he smiled, genuinely. A smile that spoke of understanding, of trust, and of a bond that had been missing for so long. He reached out and touched his father's hand, a simple gesture, but one that spoke volumes. Emily watched the exchange, her heart swelling with pride. She had known Lucas had so much more to offer than the world had given him credit for, and now, Jonathan was finally beginning to understand that. The guests in the room, once oblivious to the tension, now witnessed something extraordinary. They saw a father taking responsibility, a son accepting that responsibility, and a maid's daughter bringing them together. For the first time in the evening, there was a shift in the atmosphere, and people began to talk. Some whispered in surprise, others in admiration, and some in shame. Jonathan turned to the guests, his voice strong but full of humility. "I realize. I've been wrong. I've missed out on so much. And I won't let that happen again." The guests, once skeptical, now looked at Jonathan with a different perspective. The power dynamics had shifted, and in that moment, they saw a CEO who had finally understood what truly mattered: family. As the night went on, Lucas and Jonathan spent more time together. It wasn't perfect, and there was still much to learn, but there was progress. Lucas smiled more, and Jonathan listened more. Emily, quietly in the background, had done more than she realized. She had given Lucas a voice, and in doing so, she had given Jonathan the chance to be a better father. It was just the beginning of a new chapter for their family, one where Lucas would never again be overlooked, and where Jonathan would no longer take his son for granted. The bond they had built that night would be the foundation of something stronger, something that would grow over time. And as Emily left the mansion that evening, she couldn't help but feel a sense of fulfillment. She had made a difference in someone's life. No, in 2 lives, and she knew that was enough. The days following that dinner marked a turning point in the lives of Jonathan and Lucas Gray. For the first time in years, Jonathan took a genuine interest in his son's world. He began attending Lucas's therapy sessions, learning the basics of sign language, and making a conscious effort to communicate with his son in ways that had never crossed his mind before. He no longer viewed Lucas as an afterthought, but as an equal, someone whose thoughts and feelings were just as valuable as his own. Lucas, for his part, had begun to open up in ways Emily never expected. He would sit with her during breaks, excitedly signing new words he had learned, asking questions about the world around him. Emily had never seen him so vibrant, so full of life. His once isolated, lonely demeanor was now replaced with a curiosity and joy that had been missing for far too long. One afternoon, as Emily and Lucas were practicing signs outside, Jonathan approached them, his face serious but kind. "I've been thinking," he began, "we should get Lucas involved in something more, something that truly lets him express himself. I've seen how much this means to him, and I want to give him every opportunity to thrive." Emily was taken aback by his words. She had always known that Lucas had great potential, but hearing Jonathan acknowledge it meant the world. "What do you have in mind?" she asked. Jonathan paused for a moment, then said, "I think we should get him into art. I know he loves to draw. Maybe he could take some classes, get involved in a community where he can grow his talent." Emily smiled, her heart swelling with hope. It wasn't just that Jonathan was showing an interest in his son's passions. It was the fact that he was willing to invest in Lucas's future in a way that truly mattered. Over the next few weeks, Jonathan followed through on his promise. He enrolled Lucas in an art class specifically designed for children with special needs. The teacher was warm and welcoming, and the other children were eager to interact with Lucas, fascinated by his unique way of seeing the world. Lucas took to the class immediately, his natural talent shining through in his artwork. He was no longer just the CEO's son. He was an artist, and that was a title he wore with pride. Emily continued to support him, encouraging him to explore new techniques and helping him refine his skills. She watched as Lucas's confidence grew, as he began to share his work with the world around him. The art class became his sanctuary, a place where he could express himself freely, without fear of being misunderstood. Meanwhile, Jonathan's efforts to connect with his son did not go unnoticed. He began to show up at every art exhibit Lucas participated in, beaming with pride as he watched his son's work displayed for others to admire. He was amazed by the way Lucas's art captured the world. The textures, the colors, the emotions all brought to life on canvas in a way he had never expected. One evening, at the opening of Lucas's first solo exhibition, Jonathan stood beside Emily, looking at the paintings that lined the walls. "I never knew," he said softly, his voice filled with awe. "I never realized how much he had inside of him." Emily smiled, proud of both of them, proud of Lucas for his talent, and proud of Jonathan for finally seeing his son for who he truly was. The night was a success, with many of the guests admiring Lucas's work and talking about his future as an artist. Jonathan knew that this was only the beginning for Lucas and for their family. He had learned the most important lesson of all, that love, attention, and understanding were the keys to truly connecting with his son. The journey had just started, but it was a journey filled with hope, possibilities, and a future where Lucas would never again be overlooked. Months passed, and the changes in the Gray family were becoming more evident. Lucas's art had blossomed in ways no one could have predicted. His natural talent continued to shine through, and with each new painting, his confidence grew. Jonathan, though once a distant and distracted father, had transformed into a proud and engaged parent. He didn't just show up at Lucas's art shows. He was now actively involved in his son's life. He made a point to attend every exhibition, every class, and even the smallest milestones. He was no longer just the CEO of a multi-million-dollar company. He was a father, one who cherished the bond he had begun to build with his son. The mansion no longer felt as cold and empty as it once had. It had become a place of shared moments, of laughter, of learning, and of growth. Emily, too, had become an integral part of their lives. She wasn't just the maid's daughter anymore. She was a trusted friend, a mentor, and someone Jonathan had grown to admire deeply. The support she had shown Lucas, the way she had recognized his potential when no one else did, had not gone unnoticed. Jonathan had, in many ways, come to see Emily as a guiding force in their family. One evening, after a particularly successful art show where Lucas's work was sold to a prominent collector, Jonathan sat down with Emily. "I don't think I've ever truly understood the depth of what Lucas is capable of until now," he said, his voice full of sincerity. "Thank you for believing in him when no one else did. You gave him a voice when the world was silent." Emily smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude. "It was always there, Jonathan. He just needed someone to see it. I'm glad I was able to be there for him." Jonathan nodded, his thoughts drifting to the journey they had all taken together. It wasn't just Lucas who had changed. The entire family dynamic had been redefined. The mansion, once a symbol of success and isolation, had become a home, a place where connections were nurtured, where love and understanding flowed freely. Jonathan had learned, perhaps too late, that true success wasn't measured in numbers or business deals, but in the bonds we form with those we care about. As the weeks turned into months, Lucas's artwork began to gain more recognition. He was featured in local galleries, his paintings adorning the walls of prestigious offices and homes. But it wasn't just the art world that took notice. Jonathan, once skeptical of his son's abilities, now found himself standing proudly by his son's side, advocating for his talent and encouraging him to reach for even greater heights. "You have a gift, Lucas," Jonathan would often tell him. "Don't ever doubt it. The world is yours to conquer." Emily, too, had found her place in the family's journey. She wasn't just a caretaker or an outsider anymore. She was part of the Gray family's story, a story of redemption, understanding, and second chances. As time went on, she continued to be a guiding influence in Lucas's life, teaching him not just art, but also the importance of perseverance and self-belief. One afternoon, as they all sat together in the living room, looking at some of Lucas's latest work, Jonathan turned to Emily with a thoughtful expression. "Have you ever thought about what's next for you, Emily? You've helped Lucas get to this point, but I think there's so much more you could do. You're a teacher, a mentor, and someone who sees potential where others don't. Have you ever considered pursuing something more?" Emily, taken aback by the question, smiled softly. "I don't know, Jonathan. I've always been happy helping Lucas. But I guess there's a lot I haven't thought about yet. Jonathan nodded, his eyes thoughtful. Well, think about it. Whatever it is, I know you'll be great at it. Emily felt a warmth spread through her chest as she looked at Jonathan and Lucas. For the first time, she realized that her place in this world, in their world, had meaning. She wasn't just a part of the background anymore. She was someone who had made a difference, who had changed the lives of those around her. And that, she realized, was enough. As time went on, the transformation in the Gray family continued to grow. Lucas was flourishing in ways that no one had anticipated. His art was no longer just a hobby. It was his voice, his way of expressing a world he had long been silent in. His work began to appear in larger galleries, and the recognition he received was overwhelming. It wasn't just the art world that was captivated by his talent, but the business world as well. Investors and philanthropists started to take notice, eager to support his future endeavors. Jonathan, standing proudly beside his son at every event, couldn't help but reflect on how far they had come. He had once been consumed by the pressure of running a successful company, but now, seeing Lucas thrive, he understood that success wasn't just about business deals or profits. It was about relationships, family, and the ability to nurture the talents of those you love. But it wasn't only Lucas's talent that had changed. Jonathan had also transformed into a different kind of father. He was no longer the distant, aloof figure who had focused solely on his career. He had learned to be present for his son, to appreciate the moments that mattered, and to embrace the idea that family came first. Emily, too, had found a new place in the Gray family. She wasn't just a caretaker or an outsider anymore. She had become an essential part of their lives, and her bond with Lucas had only deepened. The way she had encouraged him when no one else had, the way she had seen his potential before anyone else, had made her an irreplaceable part of their journey. One day, as the family gathered in the living room, Jonathan turned to Emily with a look of appreciation in his eyes. Emily, I can't tell you how much you've helped us. Not just with Lucas, but with all of us. You've brought something to our lives that we didn't even know we were missing. I want you to know that you're a part of this family, truly. Emily smiled, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. I'm just happy to be here, she said. It's been incredible to see Lucas grow and to be a part of your family's story. I never thought I'd be in this position, but I'm so thankful for it. Jonathan nodded, then looked over at Lucas, who was sitting by the window, sketching as he often did. And you, Lucas, Jonathan continued, his voice filled with pride. You've changed everything. I'm so proud of you. You've shown me what really matters, and I'm grateful for that every single day. Lucas looked up from his sketchbook, his face lighting up with a genuine smile. He signed, Thank you, Dad. I wouldn't have gotten here without you. The words, though simple, were filled with meaning. They were a recognition of the bond they had created, a bond that was built on love, understanding, and, most importantly, the willingness to see each other for who they truly were. That evening, as the family gathered around the dinner table, there was an overwhelming sense of unity. The mansion, once filled with silence and isolation, now felt like a home. It wasn't just the beautiful surroundings or the wealth that defined them anymore. It was the connection they had built together. And Emily, standing in the background, felt a sense of fulfillment that she had never known before. She had helped Lucas find his voice, and in doing so, had helped Jonathan and the entire family rediscover what it meant to be truly present for one another. As the evening came to a close, Jonathan raised his glass to Lucas and Emily. To family, he said. To love, understanding, and second chances. The family shared a toast, and for the first time in a long time, they all felt like they had everything they needed, right there with each other. As the weeks turned into months, the change in the Gray family continued to unfold in the most unexpected ways. Lucas had not only become an artist, but he was also growing into a confident young man, one whose voice had finally been heard. His work was being showcased in multiple exhibitions, and each new piece seemed to speak volumes about the journey he had taken, both as an artist and as a person. What began as a small, almost overlooked talent had turned into a beacon of self-expression, a way for Lucas to communicate with the world around him in a way he had never been able to before. Jonathan, having embraced his new role as a father, began to spend even more time with Lucas, encouraging him to explore his craft even further. There were moments when Jonathan felt overwhelmed by the realization that he had missed so much of his son's life. But with each passing day, he became more committed to being the kind of father Lucas had always needed. It wasn't just about showing up at art shows or signing checks for Lucas's art supplies. It was about the small, everyday moments, sitting together at the breakfast table, talking about what Lucas had learned at school, and, most importantly, listening. Listening to what his son had to say about his life, his dreams, and his struggles. Emily, too, had become a key part of their transformation. She had started to take on more responsibilities within the family, helping with the organization of Lucas's art shows, offering guidance when needed, and supporting him as his career grew. Her relationship with Jonathan had evolved, and while they still respected the boundaries that came with their roles, they had formed a deep mutual respect for each other. Jonathan began to realize that Emily wasn't just a helper in the background. She was an integral part of their family's success. One evening, as Jonathan, Lucas, and Emily sat together in the living room, Jonathan turned to Emily with a serious look on his face. "I've been thinking about something," he said, his voice carrying a weight that wasn't there before. "I want to make sure that Lucas's success isn't just about his art. It's about the person he is. He's been through so much, and I don't want him to lose sight of the things that truly matter." Emily nodded, understanding exactly where Jonathan was coming from. "I think you're doing a great job, Jonathan," she said softly. "Lucas sees the effort you're putting in, and I think he's starting to understand that it's not just about his art or the attention it gets. It's about having the right people in his life. People who care about him for who he is, not just what he can do." Jonathan smiled, the weight on his shoulders seeming to ease a little. "Thank you, Emily. That means a lot to me." The next day, Jonathan took a bold step. He contacted the local charity for underprivileged children and proposed an art auction where the proceeds would go to help provide art supplies and education for kids who couldn't afford it. It was something that had been weighing on his mind for a while. He wanted to give back, to create opportunities for others who, like Lucas once was, were overlooked or underestimated. The idea quickly gained traction, and soon the event was organized. Lucas's art, along with pieces donated by other local artists, was put on display, and the auction raised enough money to support a scholarship program for young artists in the community. At the event, Jonathan watched as Lucas mingled with the other kids, signing autographs and encouraging them to keep pursuing their dreams. The pride in Jonathan's heart was immeasurable. This was not just a success for Lucas as an artist, but a success for the entire family. It was proof that the bonds they had built, through love, understanding, and hard work, were stronger than any business deal, any financial gain. That night, as they sat together once more, Jonathan looked at Lucas and Emily and said, "This is what I've always wanted for us. Not just success, but happiness, togetherness, and purpose. We've created something real." Lucas smiled, his eyes sparkling with gratitude. "I agree, Dad. This feels like home." Emily, looking at the two of them, couldn't help but feel that this was the family she had always dreamed of being a part of. It wasn't about wealth or status. It was about finding purpose, helping others, and, most importantly, being there for each other. And in that moment, she knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter for all of them. As the months continued to pass, the Gray family grew closer, their bond stronger than ever before. Lucas had become more than just an artist. He had become an advocate for young, aspiring artists who lacked the resources to pursue their dreams. The charity auction had been a turning point, not just for him, but for everyone who had witnessed his transformation. Jonathan, who had once seen his son's success as something distant and unrelated to his own world, had now come to appreciate the deeper meaning of what Lucas had achieved. He understood that his son's journey was not just about recognition, but about the impact he could have on others. One evening, as Jonathan and Lucas sat together in the study, surrounded by Lucas's artwork and the soft glow of a lamp, Jonathan couldn't help but reflect on how far they had come. "Lucas, I'm so proud of everything you've accomplished," Jonathan said, his voice thick with emotion. "Not just with your art, but with the way you've used your talent to help others. You've done something that I never thought was possible. You've changed lives." Lucas, who had become more comfortable expressing his feelings, smiled. "It's not just me, Dad. You've been there for me every step of the way. You've been present in ways I never thought you could be. You showed me that it's okay to be myself." Jonathan's heart swelled with pride, but there was a part of him that still felt an emptiness, a sense of guilt for the years he had missed. I wish I could go back and do things differently, Jonathan said, looking down at his hands. But I'm here now, and I promise I'll keep being here for you, no matter what happens. Lucas reached over and placed a hand on his father's arm. I know, Dad, and that's what matters. You've always been my dad, even when you were busy. I get it now. Emily, who had been quietly listening in the doorway, felt a lump form in her throat. She had watched this transformation from the beginning, and seeing the father and son finally connect in such a meaningful way was more than she could have hoped for. She stepped into the room, her voice soft but steady. I'm proud of both of you, she said. You've both come so far. It's been incredible to watch. Jonathan turned to her, his face filled with gratitude. Thank you, Emily. You've been the one who saw what we didn't. Without you, none of this would have been possible. Emily smiled, but there was a quiet humility in her expression. I didn't do it alone. We all played a part in this. And that's what family is about, helping each other, even when things are tough. The next few months were filled with continued success for Lucas, both in his artistic career and his personal growth. He had become a mentor to other young artists in the community, offering them guidance and support just as Emily had done for him. His art was now featured in prestigious galleries across the country, and his story was being shared as an example of perseverance and hope. Jonathan, ever the proud father, had become his biggest supporter, not just financially, but emotionally. He attended every art show, every event, and every important moment in Lucas's life. But it was the small, quiet moments between them, sitting together, talking about life, discussing art, that meant the most. As for Emily, she had found her own path, one that included not only being a mentor to Lucas, but also pursuing her own dreams. She had been accepted into a program to study art management, something she had always wanted to do but never thought was possible. With Jonathan's support, she had decided to take the leap. I think it's time for me to follow my own dreams, Emily told Jonathan one afternoon. I've been so focused on helping others, but I need to focus on myself now. I want to give back, but I also need to grow. Jonathan nodded, his expression one of understanding. You've done so much for us, Emily. It's your turn now. You deserve this. The family had come full circle. What started as a journey of healing and rediscovery had blossomed into something much more profound. It was no longer just about the art or the charity events. It was about love, family, and the unbreakable bond they shared. They had all changed in their own ways, but together, they had found a new sense of purpose, one that was grounded in mutual respect, understanding, and the belief that anything was possible when they supported each other. And as they looked to the future, they knew that whatever came next, they would face it together. The journey that the Gray family had taken was nothing short of extraordinary. From the struggles of being distant and disconnected to the moments of heartfelt connection, they had found their way back to each other. The transformation that Lucas had gone through, from a young boy who was overlooked and misunderstood to a celebrated artist, was a testament to the power of love, understanding, and support. Jonathan, too, had found a deeper understanding of what truly mattered. No longer was his success defined by his business empire alone, but by the relationships he had nurtured and the ways he had learned to connect with the people who mattered most to him. He had become the father Lucas always needed, one who was present, engaged, and genuinely proud of his son's achievements. Emily, who had started as a quiet presence in the background, had grown into an essential part of the family. Her role as a mentor to Lucas had paved the way for her own personal growth. With Jonathan's support, Emily had embraced her own dreams, pursuing a path in art management, a field she had longed to explore but had never thought possible. As the years passed, Lucas's career continued to soar. He was now a household name in the art world, his work exhibited in prestigious galleries around the country. But more than that, he had become a symbol of resilience and hope, showing others that with the right support and belief in yourself, anything was possible. Jonathan had made it his mission to ensure that Lucas never felt alone again. He had given him the space to flourish, but more importantly, he had shown him the importance of family, love, and shared experiences. As a family, they had attended countless art exhibitions, charity events, and community projects, all with one goal in mind: to help others find the same support and opportunities that Lucas had. They had created a legacy of giving, using their resources not just to elevate themselves, but to lift up others as well. One evening, as they sat together in the living room, Lucas looked around at his family, his heart full of gratitude. "I never could have imagined this life," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "From where I was to where I am now. It's more than I could ever have dreamed. And it's all because of you, Dad, and you, Emily. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." Jonathan reached out, placing a hand on Lucas's shoulder. "You always had it in you, Lucas. We just helped you see it. You've worked hard, and you've shown the world who you are. I'm so proud of you." Emily, sitting beside them, smiled. "We've all done this together. It's not just about one person's success. It's about what we've built as a family. We've supported each other every step of the way. And that's what makes this journey so special." The bond they shared was undeniable. It wasn't about wealth, fame, or recognition. It was about love, trust, and the unbreakable ties that had formed between them. They had shown the world that family could be the greatest success of all. As the night wore on, they knew that the future was bright. They had a lifetime of memories ahead of them, and as long as they had each other, there was nothing they couldn't overcome. The Gray family had found their way, and their story was just beginning. In this heartwarming and inspiring story, we dive deep into the lives of a family whose transformation is nothing short of extraordinary. Jonathan, a successful businessman, and his son Lucas, a talented artist, both embark on a journey of rediscovery and connection that challenges everything they thought they knew about success and family. Through challenges, setbacks, and moments of self-doubt, Lucas proves that even in the face of adversity, talent and determination can break barriers. This millionaire story highlights the powerful impact of love, understanding, and support in shaping one's future. As the Gray family navigates through their journey, the story showcases how they turn their fortunes around and use their wealth not just for personal gain, but to uplift others. The lessons in this millionaire story are profound. True success is not defined by financial wealth alone, but by the bonds we create and the difference we make in the world. Emily, the maid's daughter, also plays a pivotal role in guiding Lucas and Jonathan towards their true purpose, and in doing so, becomes an integral part of their success. Her influence leads them to open their hearts to new possibilities, showing that everyone, regardless of their background, can make a difference. This millionaire story is about second chances, redemption, and the realization that no matter where we start, with the right people by our side, we can achieve greatness. Through their struggles and triumphs, the Gray family story serves as a reminder that millionaire stories are not just about money. They are about the people who touch our lives, the impact we have on others, and the legacy we leave behind. Join us as we witness a true transformation in this millionaire story, where a family's love and support become the true measure of wealth.